Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 29th episode of QISSAA with Ishika, quintessential and inspiring stories of South Asian artists, funded by the California Arts Council Individual Artist Fellow Grant. My name is Ishika Muchal, and I'm coming to you from the unceded ancestral lands of the Gabrielino Tongva people, also known as Los Angeles, California. I am beyond thrilled to introduce to you my guest today, comedy writer and performer Romen Borsellino. A member of the Writers Guild of America, Romen has been a writer for Comedy Central's The Daily Show during CalPenn's weeks as guest host. Before that, he was a staff writer for season 2 of NBC's A Little Late with Lily Singh, as well as the sole writer for CTV's Battle of the Generations, hosted by Lily Singh. In 2020, Romen co-created and executive-produced Freeform's comedic election series called CalPenn Approves This Message. Romen has also written comedy for President Biden's 2023 White House Correspondents' Dinner Remarks, the 2023 PEN America Literary Awards, the 2021 WGA Awards, and Adam McKay and Will Ferrell's This Giant Beast That Is the Global Economy on Amazon Prime. You may have seen him as White House staffer from the Motown Night episode for Fox's I Can See Your Voice, Season 3. Before writing comedy, Romen served as a political appointee in the Obama administration. He has also worked on a number of high-profile political campaigns in his home state of Iowa, including Obama's historic 2008 Iowa caucus race and 2012 election. Romen is a graduate of Amherst College. I am beyond thrilled to welcome Romen Borsellino. Thank you so much for joining me.
Of course. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I am sorry that I gave you such a long bio that we probably have time for like one question after this.
No worries at all. I feel like that's about how long everyone's bio is. And it's amazing to just like read all the things that you've accomplished, let alone like get to speak with you and share your journey.
Of course. Excited to be here. It is, as I mentioned to you earlier off camera, it is, of course, St. Patrick's Day. So yes. Thank you for preventing me from being at a bar right now. If left to my own devices, who knows what I'd be up to.
I'm so glad that I could help with that, but at least we're still kind of repping our little St. Patrick's green.
Of course. And just don't ask me what's in this mug.
Don't ask me what's in this mug then.
All right, deal.
Sounds good. Why don't we get started from the very beginning of your journey? How did you get introduced to the arts and writing specifically?
Good question. My parents are both writers, granted a different kind of writing. They were opinion columnists for the Des Moines Register, and that entailed a lot of political coverage. So my background is less about comedy in any sort of, trained way, but more a deep engagement in politics and the world around me. And I think that just sort of morphed, as we can talk about more, but into eventually a career in the arts. So different kind of writing to start things off. It was more a more serious background of writing that I was exposed to.
Definitely. And I mean, we can see like just from reading your bio, how much of like a political involvement you've had. So I'm wondering, so I also served as student union president, and I know that you did as well. So was that your first interaction with being in like an elected position and being like actively involved other than like reading about it? Or did that go further back?
So first of all, thank you for asking me about that. I don't think I've ever been asked about my student government time in an interview. And I think the reason when I think about it is because nobody really gives a damn about student government, both when you're in the position and after the position. This is absolutely sociopathic of me. But I will tell you this, I ran for student body president when I was in elementary school, and I lost, and it was absolutely devastating. So to make up for it, I ran and won in middle school, high school, and college. And I think I have proven to myself whatever the hell it is I have to prove. And I can retire that for now.
Yeah. In elementary school, did you have one of those like slogans that was like East or West, Roman is the best?
I didn't have that specific
Okay.
one. I had, let's see, I had a picture of, my name is actually, it doesn't look like this from the writing. It is pronounced Romen. So
Ramen. Okay.
I had a picture of ramen noodles, and it said, "You can't top ramen." And it had top ramen. I also had, in addition to being South Asian, I'm half Italian. So I had me standing next to a sports car with a baseball bat, and there was an arm hanging out of the back, and it said, "Never vote against an Italian." And I also lampooned my high school principal by dressing up as her. Got real creative. I guess for me at the time, comedy was like literally just a means to succeed in the political world, and not the other way around. Now, which again we can get into more. I think I use comedy in the best case scenario to promote a liberal political agenda. So
that's good. Yeah.
what about you? I'm curious. What was your impetus for joining the very prestigious student government?
Oh God. I think every institution like has things that could use improvement. And I like came off of taking a gap year from my time at CalArts. And when I went back, I was like getting involved a lot during my year off in political campaigns, kind of similar to you. And really was like, if I want to see these changes made, I have to be the one to make them. And then kind of ran for student union, like acting ambassador for my department. And then I just kind of naturally transitioned into like running for president, and it was fun because like me and my vice president, like there wasn't anyone running against us, but like we had a really good time like campaigning, literally against no one, but just like making posters. That's because fun. It's an art college, so I had asked like a bunch of my friends to I gave them like letters for go vote for Ishika and Grace, and then everyone like drew art around those letters, and we put them up, and it was fun. I don't know, it was a beautiful thing of like, your stories matter, and like, yeah.
A fun thing about my race is that I ran against a kid who shared 3 of the same 5 letters of my name. I ran against a Rohan, and we both looked kind of alike, and were like the same height and similar complexion, and people would like come up to me and be like, "Oh, I love that poster you put up. It's great, man." And I'd be like, that was not my poster. That was definitely Rohan's.
That's so funny.
It also made like the president of the college was like, the trustees want to know why like the student body president here always happens to be an Indian. He didn't mean it. He didn't mean it in his pejorative way, but I don't know. Is that the case at your school? Why do we always run for student body president?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because our institute president is also Indian, and he had like a moment because my predecessor was also Indian and the student union president. And there was a moment where I was working with her as vice president, and it was like the institute president was Indian, the student union president was Indian, and the vice president was Indian. And it was just like, I love that we're kind of taking over. Not like in a taking over way, but like we're really passionate about this.
Right. And now we've set our sights on the actual White House with Kamala Auntie and our boy Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley. I don't know. Is this a nonpartisan show? Can I get you in trouble by forcing you to talk shit about Republicans? Will your grant be revoked if I get you to do that?
I don't think so. I am not nonpartisan.
Okay.
At all. I don't think anyone who knows me thinks I am nonpartisan. I don't know.
One thing I did want to say to, I don't know. Sorry that you asked me like a totally innocuous question, and now I'm talking about Vivek Ramaswamy, which I, probably knew going into this I was going to have to shoehorn anyway into the conversation. But I think about the time doing student body president, which was super fun, and it was like a real leadership position. And you think in theory these are like skills you're going to use throughout the rest of your life, which I think is true. But in a lot of ways, I feel like I am absolutely not using them right now. And if anything, I'm doing it I'm sort of doing the opposite of it, because I would say writing is at best like a collaborative process when you're in a writer's room and everyone is on the same level.
Right.
And at the toughest, you are totally alone, and you are just like holed up in your room, writing by yourself, not talking to anyone. And it is still sort of unclear to me how the like wanting to be social and outgoing and, you know, be a leader translates to at least this part of the writing process. And I'm still sort of trying to figure that out, how I can make use of that. I think in a best case scenario, people go on to be directors and showrunners and producers, and that's where you put those skills to use. But I think it's an interesting question. I don't know, in your, you are still relatively out of college. So like, you're still, you know, president emeritus over here. I'm not sure if you've experienced that at all or wondered how you can put those skills towards your, you know, your entertainment career.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it translates a little more because like I am an actor. So it's a lot more like publicly engaged, like story, like in person kind of vibe versus you're talking about like writing. But I think even for you, the biggest thing that I love about like, I don't want to say politics, but just like public policy and like social service and that type of that public role is like being able to engage with people and like learn about their stories and elevate their voices. And I think that's very much like what a writer does. So inherently it's probably translating without you thinking about it.
Yeah. All right. I like that.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Yeah.
I will use that next time someone in an interview asks me about my time as student body president, which I'm sure will be the next time I do whatever the equivalent of a QISSAA is.
I hope so. I mean, it would be, I hope that there are other versions of this show. Yeah. So tell me more about like your interaction with political campaigns and your time, I guess, in the White House and how that inspired like the intersection within which you work of arts and politics.
Right, of course. Well, first of all, just to be clear, you know, I am not a White House staffer. I only play one on TV.
Yeah.
And I was on this game show where they called me White House staffer, and I was legitimately concerned that it would be this like hierarchy of like people who actually served in White House proper would be like, that is stolen valor. You don't get to call yourself that when you served in the Department of the Interior, which is technically 3 blocks away from the White House. I just wanted to, you know, that point of clarification that fortunately no one has come for me on that yet. I was and I'm sorry for the language, for all the aunties listening to this. I was somewhat of a shithead when I worked on the campaign and in the Obama administration. Like, I think I did a good job and I got along well, but like I had no filter on things that should not be said in a political environment, let alone the, you know, making decisions for the president of the United States. There was a for Halloween in 2016, in 2015, I went as presidential candidate D's Nuts. And I wore that outfit to the, you know, my official government job. And I asked permission if I could wear that outfit because you're not allowed to dress as any actual candidate for office. That would be a violation of the Hatch Act. So I asked what I thought was an innocuous question of, can I wear this silly costume? And I get an email back like 2 days later that is like, your request has been bumped up to the White House office of, you know, Office of White House Counsel. Our lawyer, the president's lawyers are looking over whether or not you can dress as D's Nuts. This is a 100% true thing. I pulled a Hillary Clinton and kept some of those emails after I left. So I still have evidence of this. But all of this is to say, I loved government and I loved working on campaigns. It is unclear how long I could have lasted there because it was just a weird fit for me wanting to be a shithead and being in an environment where, you know, that is not necessarily most people's predisposition to wear a D's Nuts costume to work.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think you probably brought like a little bit of joy to a very, very serious, in theory, serious place.
Right. I hope so. And, you know, mind you, this was 2 years. This was a year and a half, 2 years before Trump won. So like, I thought there were still rules and protocols to follow. Yeah. Like, who was I wanting to not make a mockery of the presidency of the United States?
Right.
And lo and behold. But all of that is to say, I was pretty firmly cemented in a career in politics and government. And I had not thought that I would make it to entertainment. I just figured that ship has sailed. I hadn't studied it, and I didn't have the requisite experience. But when Trump won and my job ended in 2017, I did not want to stick around DC to see what happened next, which is frankly in many ways the cowardly move, because the hardest part is when like the Republicans are in power and the Democrats have to like fight back and regain. I was like, all right, well, I did the fun shit and worked for Obama, and now I'm going to peace out. Good luck solving this mess. And I moved to LA to work in entertainment, and had a bit of a late start. I mean, I was, I guess at that point, 27, and up against a lot of people who were your age, just out of college, in the same position as me, and who had studied the very things that I was trying to pursue and had no experience in. I will say, though, that having a different background helps you stick out a little bit. So it was more helpful than I expected.
Yeah, yeah. And on that note, I mean, I think they have like a degree experience, but you brought like your real life experience, which I'm assuming probably translated into like working on political entertainment stuff. And I mean, just speaking from my own perspective, like I have stood out in a way for like fellowships that I've applied to that are very much like political or like public service related things, being an actor, because I'm sure there are not a lot of actors and a lot of like political science majors applying for that, you know? So it's like a different voice is always important. It doesn't always have to be like, oh, your degree says this, so you are automatically qualified. Like your life and your experience can equally qualify you to tell a beautiful story.
Totally. And, you know, Ishika, a lot of people write in a script about dressing as these nuts to a government meeting. I lived it, though. So I was operating from a position of experience. So I think you're totally right about that. But yeah, I think the goal, after doing some grunt work in LA for a few years, as one does working at a talent agency, was eventually to be able to start writing political satire. And I would be perfectly happy writing on non-political shows. But for me, the sweet spot, again, as you can relate to, is affecting some sort of change through this medium.
Yeah, and what change is not brought out by being these nuts?
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how did that
again? Apologies to the aunties watching right now. Blame me. I'm the corrupting influence here, not sweet Ishika, who's just doing her job.
For sure. So how did that transition you into working with Kal Penn and Lily Singh? I know you mentioned earlier that you met him during your time working with Obama.
Yes, thank you. And by the way, I think we've been talking for 17 minutes now, and this is the first time, aside from my bio, that the name Kal Penn or Lily Singh have come up, which is like, you know, a record. Obviously, it's like someone going to Harvard and mentioning it within the first 30 seconds. Usually, like, I can't get 2 words in without someone pointing out that they really just want to hear about Kal or Lily. So I
mean, you're the voice behind what they're saying, so it's equally as important. Yeah.
To some very small degree, unless they say something cancelable, in which case I had nothing to do with that shit. I did not tell Kal to get on Twitter and post that. In fact, maybe I even tried to discourage him from it. And I say this because I think he might be watching right now. So I really just want to put him on blast. But yeah, I am
so nervous. You should not do that.
Kal, I met through the Obama campaign. I was a high school senior interning for Obama when he came to my high school to campaign. And what's funny about that is that I wanted to impress him, like, ooh, maybe he can like get me a job in the White House. Well, for one, as a benefit, of course, but oh, you know, maybe he'll take me seriously as a you know, as a real political player. And I kept screwing up and like doing things that caused him to not take me seriously, like posting pictures on Facebook that he had to tell me to take down because the president couldn't be associated with such things when I was doing events with Obama. And the flip side of that is that while it have made me a total clown in the political world, it proved useful for potentially getting into entertainment one day. And then with Lily, she had season 2 of her show was staffing up a little late with Lily Singh. And she was very clear that she did not want it to be a political show. and that's just not her brand. And I totally sold her a bill of goods in my interview. I was like, oh, that's great. Frankly, I'm looking to take a break from politics. So this is perfect. And meanwhile, I was like texting her EP her executive producer on the other line, who was like, no, we need you to infiltrate the show and get it to be political. Like there is Biden is getting inaugurated this year. Like we need to do some stuff. So to Lily's credit, she did a ton of political stuff on her show, and it felt like we were making a difference through that.
Yeah. And I think with her show, like I watched a lot of it, and I've watched a lot of Cal Penn stuff as well. There's like this, I don't want to say burden, but like inherently as voices that are not heard from a lot, just us speaking and being heard sometimes feels like a political act. So going even further to kind of like endow ourselves with that power of speaking truth to power. I don't know what I'm saying right now, but
no.
There's this responsibility and added like potential there for using that space and using that platform to make change, which is really powerful. Yeah,
totally. Unless you're watching like Cal Penn's Van Wilder, where he plays a character named Taj Mahal, in which case, I'm not sure how much space we're making. No, I'm just kidding.
There's a character called Taj Mahal.
His first name is Taj. His last name is Mahal Badalandabad.
I love that. Yeah.
I watched it when I was like 13, which for one, I probably shouldn't have been watching. But I was happy to take that kind of see that kind of representation.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was your time like working on Cal Penn Approves This Message?
That was great. That was a really interesting experience. It was, for those not familiar, it was a 6-episode election special that he and I created together, that he, of course, hosted. And it was on Freeform, which is like catered to young people. It is Disney's young people arm. Sorry, maybe like late teens, early 20s, I would say. And that sort of changed the calculus based on other places we might have sold the show. So there is maybe an edgier version that we could have sold to one of the streamers, or a more leftist version that we could have sold to Vice or whatnot. For better or worse, we sold it to Freeform, and it was a good experience, but it sort of, I think, Disney owns Freeform, so it was a little less outwardly progressive than I might personally have gone. And I think we spent a lot of time explaining issues in a way that, in hindsight, our audience probably already knew. I think a lot of times people make the mistake of assuming that young people aren't tuned in and don't know stuff. And so we devoted more time to like explaining what the Affordable Care Act is than to like actually making jokes about healthcare. And in hindsight, if I could do it over again, I think we would say a couple sentences at the top and then get straight into the comedy, because I think young people, as I said, are more tuned in than people give them credit for. So that was a fun learning experience. And I think, if we're able to do something similar again, then we want to go edgier, and we want to go something that respects the audience as much as possible in terms of assuming that they already know a certain baseline.
Right. Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I've seen that, and I would love to see like an even more quote unquote radical version of that, I guess, because I think my generation is like hyper exposed to the information about what's happening around us. At least like the people that I know and associate with definitely are. So that's like a good starting point of assuming that we are engaged and have an opinion, and just like adding additional commentary that we align with and that we feel seen with would be really cool.
Totally.
Future idea.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah. What were some of the early struggles of transitioning into writing?
So for one, and I was sort of telling you this story before we started taping. For one, I was afraid that I would not succeed in entertainment.
Mhm.
The jury is still out on that one, by the way. But at least in the very beginning,
Yeah.
and that by trying to succeed in entertainment and failing, I would close the door on being able to go back to politics and government. So
Mhm.
uh, things like sending a tweet that was inappropriate
Sure.
or posting pictures on social media that may be funny, but again, would not help clear a background check with the government if I wanted to go back. I was trying to walk a line in which I think I didn't
Mhm.
fully commit to what I was trying to do, just to keep the door open
Right.
for
Right.
something else. And in hindsight, it's worked. You know, at one point, I decided to just sort of go for it and was
Yeah.
like, look, if I'm putting my life on hold and I'm out here and, you know, struggling for this and that, might as well actually go for it.
Right.
And it's generally worked out, but I can't say there weren't times when I was like, well, in a year or two, if, you know, this doesn't work, then I'll hop on this campaign or I'll see if I can
Mhm.
get a job in this Senate office or whatnot. And I'm
Mhm.
very glad that I didn't resort to that, but
Yeah.
it held me back a little bit from, you know, from really pursuing at first what I came out here to do, which was to write and
Mm.
find a way to make people laugh.
Yeah. I think that's so funny how we're like, because I do the same thing. I'm like, I have to be so careful about what I put out there. And then, we just happen to see people get elected that like literally don't give a shit about
Right.
any of that. I'm like,
Truly.
why do I care so much?
And that's, I mean, that's a great point, and that's another thing.
Yeah.
Again, this was, as I said, this was like at the beginning of Trump's term,
Right.
so
Right.
you see more and more that just no one actually gives a shit.
Yeah.
But I also think, uh, you know, maybe minorities are held to a different standard. Maybe
Yeah.
people like
Yeah.
you and me have to be a little more perfect and are expected
Right.
to be a little more perfect
Yeah.
rather than the Trump. Oh, that's just Trump. We'll just give him a
Right.
pass. He's doing his thing. So
Yeah.
the model minority myth, I think.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was gonna say afterwards. I'm so glad you said it, that there definitely is an additional box that we have to fit in, or at least to be digestible.
Totally.
Yeah. So did you ever feel the need to fit in with the stories that you wrote? And also being mixed, like how did that affect the type of stories that you were drawn to?
Right. It's a good question. I think I end up, despite the fact that I'm mixed, you know, half Italian, half Indian, I think I end up skewing more towards my South Asian identity.
Mhm.
Um, and whether or not that's a good thing or makes sense, it is, people look at me and think he's
Mhm.
brown.
Right.
So where's the brown material, buddy? Slash working for two of the most, you know, writing for two of the most prominent members of the South Asian community. But
Right.
in a way, that also means that I sort of have a tendency to at times use identity as a crutch and
Mhm.
not really explore uh, being mixed as opposed to just being South Asian. And
Mhm.
that's something I'd like to explore more of. I mean, also I probably get just as much material out of being South Asian as I do from being from frickin' Des Moines, Iowa, which is where I
Yeah.
grew up. So that is another, like, identity is weird in that way.
Yeah.
That when I grew up in Iowa, the only thing people saw about me was my skin color when they
Right.
looked at me. And then I went to college, which is a very diverse school on the East Coast. And immediately what blew people's minds was the fact that I was from Iowa. They didn't give a shit
Mm.
about the fact that I was South Asian or
Yeah.
whatnot. And that was such a weird, like, the most normal part about me quickly became the most exotic thing about me,
Mm.
and vice versa,
Yeah.
with my skin color.
That's so funny because I remember when I was researching you for this interview, everything that came up had Iowa in
Yeah,
the title.
I
I
am
was like, "Oh my god."
too proud of, well, yeah, also, like, Iowa treats, you know, like, Iowa treats, I'm very grateful for the press opportunities, but,
Mhm.
like, I will do anything, and there'll be, like, a headline that's like, "Iowan does X in Hollywood." Like,
Yeah.
I saw a headline in the Des Moines Register the other day, and it was like, uh, "Local Iowan casts role in such and such film," and I clicked on it, and it was a story about Elijah Wood, and I was like, yeah, okay, I didn't know he was from Iowa, cool."
Yeah.
But, like, we're really milking that connection.
Yeah.
Uh, I assumed it was going to be some like fucking farmer from, I don't know. Sorry. I'm very proud of Iowa. I very much love Iowa.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, all of my, if you Google my name, every headline is like Iowan does X, Iowan
Sure. Yeah.
does
That's
Y.
what it was.
During the strike, my friends started giving me a lot of crap. Like, dude, how many news outlets are there in Iowa? And like, have you not run your 10 seconds of fame being able to talk about the strike into the ground by doing an interview with every single one of them?
I feel that way about the town that I was raised in, Monrovia. Very much like I'm in things with that, and I'm like everything is
Right.
Monrovia.
Again, I am totally glad to juice those Google search numbers, especially if it means driving some of the less flattering ones into, you know, later down. Like the more, frankly, I need to start pitching myself to every affiliate in Iowa. Maybe there's some that I haven't reached out to yet.
Yeah, I feel that the good old SEO working to your favor. Yeah. So you were talking earlier about like identity becoming a crutch, and I think I want to ask you, because I feel like a lot of times writers from marginalized communities or like South Asian writers specifically, I've seen like they're asked or they're assumed that they will be writing about like, you know, our people. And how have you dealt with that? How has that been pigeonholing, and how do you think that writers in general can avoid or step into or step out of that pigeonhole?
Right. Well, and for one, I want to make it clear when I talk about using it as a crutch, I don't mean that in a cynical sense of like South Asians should not be writing about South Asian issues. I mean that solely from my own personal experience of I want to make sure that I have range, and that while a massive part of my identity is being South Asian, I want to make sure that I have more to say than just that. Because frankly, I think this is an absolute blessing we didn't have a while ago, that in the next few years, there are going to be an insane number of South Asian creatives on the scene, such that writing about being South Asian is not that novel anymore. And people will be like, again, my hope is that, and it's already starting to happen, but especially in 5-10 years, people will be like, bro, we've heard this story a million times about the auntie and whatnot. And that will be great when that happens. So I got to prepare for that and make sure that I can go beyond that. I am also very fortunate in, of course, you know, bringing up Cal Penn's name again, so I'll drink. That his background is very much largely his material, his work on House, his work in Harold and Kumar is about, he happens to be brown, but it is not, you know, it's not about specifically his culture. And I think there's a legitimate debate around what, you know, what the role is of South Asians right now. Should we be educating the population on our culture, or is existing while brown enough to change the narrative? And I think it's a great conversation. But I think Cal has done an extraordinary job of just being a normal actor who is in projects where he plays a freaking character named Seth Wright, where like I guarantee you, if any blind men watch Designated Survivor, they would not know he was a brown character. Which is progress.
Yeah, it is. And I just recently watched the show One Day on Netflix, which destroyed me emotionally. But that's
I'm not familiar with One Day.
It's really good, and it has a South Asian lead as the female, but her name is Emma Morley, and she's just like, you know, she's a British gal, and that's like they never talk about her being South Asian. We never see her family, and I have never related to a character so much. But I'm like, we never, and it's that weird thing of like, do I relate more to like a character that's I am Indian through the character, or do I relate to a character who's Indian, but like is also just like a person?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know who I really related to growing up, because Kumar was too cool for me. Who I related to was Kevin G from Mean Girls. Granted, I was not that good at math, but like, I don't think he says shit about being Indian once in the movie.
No.
Like, he just is Indian. And he's just like, first of all, the Riz on that guy. Are you kidding me? But second of all, he's just like a dude. Just like a hilarious dude.
His name is Kevin
Yeah.
we don't know what his last name is.
Nupur.
Oh,
The
just
G is
saying, we
silent.
do.
It is. He mentions it in his rap,
Right.
and
Okay.
it definitely gets incredibly vulgar. Something about the G being
Yeah.
silent, which I am not going to get into right now.
Hmm.
Sorry, Auntie.
No, thank you. So drastic change of conversation. What does a typical day on in your life as a writer look like when you are in a show or like on working on something when you're not in a show but you're just writing for yourself? What does that look like?
Right. Well, the great thing is that writers' rooms start pretty like typically late. So whether I am on a show or not, I will still get to sleep until like 9:30. We start our days very late. I was on
Yeah.
Lily's room. It was it was like virtual, so I could do the
Uh-huh.
shit from home. So I
Yeah.
would roll out of bed at 9:50 and be on a Zoom at 10. And you could tell from my hair that I had just rolled out of bed. Um, it requires a lot of discipline when you are not actively in a writer's room.
Right.
The day is a blank slate, and there is absolutely nothing to stop you from napping, unfortunately, because I will nap when given the opportunity to nap
Yeah.
is the problem. Uh, but it is about waking up, going to a coffee shop for a few hours,
Mhm.
coming back from lunch, doing some
Yeah.
more writing. Yeah, maybe like a quick 1 hour nap in there real quick.
Mhm.
Write again afterwards. It's it requires discipline.
Yeah.
I guess this sort of goes against what I said about being in a leadership position from like student government, but in a lot of ways, I like being told what to do. If I'm in a writer's room and someone's like, you need this sketch banged out by X o'clock, whatever, like,
Yeah.
great, I'll do it. Whereas if it's totally up to me and I'm the one making the deadline,
Right.
what's to stop me from pushing that deadline back a little further? So it's something I really struggle with. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people, a lot of writers really struggle with time management. The other side of that coin is sometimes I will, you can create your own schedule. So there's also nothing to stop me from writing till like 2 a.m.,
Mhm.
which I will do. But it's also not necessarily the healthiest thing because then one sleeps late, etc. It's the Wild West out there, though, when you're not in a
Yeah.
writer's room.
Yeah, I love what you were talking about the coffee shop. That's like such a trend, and I genuinely feel like every coffee shop in LA is surviving solely because of the creatives who go there to work.
Totally. And I'm like, it is the first time in my life that I've been a regular somewhere. I'm a regular
Mhm.
at the coffee shop. I was gonna say it's nice to have them like know my name, but they don't know my name because I gave them a fake name because I knew they weren't gonna pronounce my name Ramen correct anyway. So my name is
Right.
Rocky at the coffee shop. So
Yeah.
I'm a regular, but Rocky is technically a regular and not
Uh,
Ramen. So but
yeah.
yes, the one thing I do not do at coffee shops is take like Zoom calls, which
Mm.
is freaking nuts that people do that.
Horrible.
Like writers will be
Horrible.
at the table next to me, like zooming about some crap. They're like,
Yeah.
bro, go, go do this in your
Get
car.
a
It's
room.
LA.
Yeah.
You have a car. Yeah.
Yeah. And what is the difference for you that you've experienced writing for a late night versus a TV show or like a screenplay?
Yeah, there is a big difference. I mean, late night is about quick jokes.
Right.
Those jokes have a shelf life of not very long.
Mhm.
Any jokes I could write now would probably not make sense in like 2 weeks about
Mhm.
whatever's, whatever Biden St. Patrick's Day address or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that will be obsolete very quickly.
Sure.
Um, and then narrative, uh, for a script or whatever, it requires way more than just those joke sensibilities.
Yeah.
And I think we've reached a place where um, not everyone, but for the vast majority, every drama has elements of comedy in it, pretty strong ones, and every comedy, in order for it to work, has to have very good scene structure
Right.
and a very serious element to it. So my background is like jokes, and in trying to branch out and do more narrative, then that means going beyond just a quick one-liner joke, which is funny because
Right.
people will say to me, "Oh my god, I could never." People who are very talented sitcom writers,
Mhm.
people, yes, these people exist. I promise. Maybe someone said this to me once. Uh, will be like, "Oh, I couldn't write the quick one-off jokes like you do." I'm like,
Yeah.
well, like, oh, well, I think what you do is harder. So
Mm,
it's a good question, and there's
right.
there's not a clear answer to it, other than to say I am doing my best to sort of have both talents and not just
Yeah,
the quick one-off jokes.
sure. Okay, I'm gonna become the Iowa newspapers for a second and
I
milk
can already imagine the headline.
milk the strike question. I just want to ask you, how has the strike changed your process of writing, and what impact did that have on your career?
It's weird. I think a lot of people will tell you that during the strike, it just felt like a gray cloud hanging over all of us. And look, I think every creative, you can relate to this, every creative will experience long stretches of unemployment. That's just a part of it. Um,
Yeah.
and so in that sense,
Yeah.
when we were on strike, was it really that different from just going through a stretch of not being on a show or
Mm,
not getting booked for something? But there was something mental about it. There is, like, when you wake up in the morning, the thought that your phone could ring or that an email could come in with a project,
yeah.
just the opportunity of that being there puts a pep in your step and gives you some sort of motivation. And
Mhm.
knowing that that's not going to be there makes it really tough to find that motivation. And then now, even that it's over, uh, there is just a huge shortage of opportunities right now. And I
Right.
think everyone is feeling it, and everyone's feeling very squeezed. That uh, I think probably because of the self-inflicted costs that the strike put on these greedy studios, who just,
Mhm.
like, basically burned millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Now they're like, oh, well, we can't afford to, have this show going, or we can't afford this or that. And so
Yeah.
there are fewer opportunities, and we're all still feeling the effects of it. So I'd be lying if I said it wasn't super tough,
Yeah.
and that there weren't, there wasn't a gray cloud uh, over us. But, thanks to the lessons I learned growing up in Des Moines, Iowa, oh, sorry, I forgot that this was not actually an Iowa interview.
I'm so glad we mentioned it again though, because it feels like it had to come up again.
Totally.
Yeah,
Full circle.
for sure. Well, talking about the strike, I think one of the things that, I mean, I'm not SAG, but I was going there to like support a lot of like the WGA strikes and the SAG strikes. But something that I really got was like this sense of community and camaraderie, and kind of transitioning into like how a writer's room is, like that sense of community. How how does that develop, and what do you look for in the collaborators, or are the things that like stand out of the collaborators that you have really liked working with?
Totally. I think the advice that I was given before the first time I was ever in a writer's room
Mhm.
was that the work ethic is more important than the actual talent and
Mm.
comedy in some way. That, like, if you make mistakes or if jokes are missing or not funny enough, that's filling those in are the easy part. But doing the grueling work and coming up with way more ideas than you need so that you can make up for potential shortcomings
Mhm.
is the most important part. And so I think I I have been fortunate to work with very, very talented people
Yeah.
and very hilarious people in some of the rooms that I've been in. Um, but especially, at least what I've been told, and I can see it stands out to the showrunners and the people above you, is how hard you're willing to work and who is willing to
Mhm.
always volunteer for the next project, even if you may not be the funniest person in the room.
Sure.
So I think that is something that when a writer's room is being assembled, also, it's like, fielding a baseball team, that you need different talents for different positions. So, like,
Mhm.
oh, this is a comedy. This person isn't very funny, but they are really good at putting together scene structure or a script. And then this person, in this position, may not be the best at that, but their one-off jokes are amazing. And so when
Mhm.
we partner these two people, you get an amazing script. So it's fascinating to
Yeah.
watch how that comes together.
Yeah, yeah. I love the sports analogy of like finding people's strengths and building that team. Yeah, that's really cool. Um, and I know we talked a little about this before, but how would you think that we can expand and define the idea of what is a South Asian story?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as I said, it's sort of it's an ongoing question of,
Yeah.
does that mean you're explicitly South Asian with it, or is having South Asians in it good enough? And I'm currently of the mindset that just having South Asians in it is a good enough start. That get people comfortable with, I think in Master of None, which I freaking loved, Aziz's show in the first season, they talk about how, oh, this is an ensemble of 4 people and we already have 1 Indian, so we can't have 2. And he was like, well, every ensemble is mostly white people. You would never say, oh, you can't have 2 white people in the ensemble, et cetera. And that really spoke to me. And so I think simply having an ensemble that's multiple Indian people or whatnot, whether or not it's about being Indian, just getting people familiar with seeing that on their screen to the point that you don't have to question if there's too many Indians, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Much like questioning why the student body president at Amherst College is always an Indian. Once you get people familiar with that, then I think that is the most important step. But I would be perfectly fine if someone challenged that notion and said, no, you need to be doing more than that and sharing our culture with the world, et cetera. I'm totally amenable to that mindset. But for me right now, it's just putting people on screen, throw in South Asian names into a script.
Yeah.
Even if that person's never on screen. Yeah. We need more Ishikas is what we need.
Stop. I don't think so. But one is good enough for the world, I think. But yeah, I like what you were saying. And this kind of like goes back to a political idea of like zero-sum theory, of that scarcity mindset that I think a lot of I have had for a long time, and I'm trying to like navigate within myself of like, yeah, you have one, so that's all that they're ever gonna cast. Like there's 1 Indian, so like I shouldn't even, because that's too many, but that's not a thing, because like we exist en masse,
Right.
and there is room for more people, and that would be a beautiful place to be able to work with other South Asian actors. I mean, I've listened to so many podcasts about like the cast of Never Have I Ever talking about their experience and just like the rare beauty of getting to work with other South Asian creatives in a space, and that like solidarity and sense of community. And I recently got to do a show where for the first time in my life there was another South Asian in the cast.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it was amazing. And yeah, just wanted to throw that in there.
More of that.
That's really important. Yeah.
More of that shit.
Please. Yeah. So what are some of the changes that, if you could just do that and change things in the entertainment industry, what changes would you like to see happen? Representation broadly, just anything.
It's tough to break in. I had, Cal Penn in my corner, and it still was not easy to get a foot in the door. So I wish everyone had that sort of in. So I don't know. I think maybe that's more mentorship programs. I mean, as long as it's done right. You don't just want to call something a mentorship program and not actually work to foster it. But I think a lot of good groups are working on that. This organization, Salon, that is run by some really cool guys, Vinny Dash and Nick Dodani, who's a friend. That is one of those groups that, in theory, more people will have the Cal Penn connection of the world, etc. But I feel very fortunate to have that. It shouldn't take having that to break into the entertainment industry. So I don't know what the exact fix for that is, other than, maybe writers' rooms, people hiring need to make a more concerted effort to do that and set aside more slots for up and coming staff writers, knowing that they're truly making an investment in someone, and that it's good for business to give more people opportunities and find more untapped talent.
Yeah, definitely. And on the idea of mentorship, I mean, I'm just so grateful for everyone that's been on this podcast I feel even if I don't have like a direct mentor relationship with them, I feel like you guys are teaching me so much just listening to your journeys. So just shout out to you for being on this.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, everyone should just start a podcast and they get unlimited mentorship, I think, is what I'm really trying to say here.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. That's kind of what this has done for me.
More QISSAAs. I know this is awesome though. This is really fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
To act like I know what the hell I'm talking about for 50 minutes.
And speaking of QISSAA, so QISSAA means episode, and I ask each of my guests, what is one really influential QISSAA or episode that happened in your life that shaped you as a person or as an artist?
Good question. Probably when I was on Lily Singh's show, she put me on camera a couple times for better or worse. And that was something I had like no experience with. And I don't know if I'll pursue that more seriously or if that was a one-off thing, but I think as any, sounds pretentious to call myself a creative, but I think as anyone in this industry can attest to, the more you see how different sides of the operation work, the more you can be good at everything. So being on set and seeing sort of what that process is like as an actor, I think made me an even better writer. So I was grateful for that opportunity. I think that was a QISSAA that very much has come in handy for my career, whether I'm aware of it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all, I feel like artists are the one like type of person that like we try to do it all because it makes us well-rounded and also just aware of the many different facets of what goes into making something happen. Yeah.
Totally.
And what is some advice that you would give an up-and-coming or young artist, specifically one of South Asian descent, who wants to go into writing?
A couple things. One is to a certain degree, don't be afraid to be kind of annoying. And like, I think most people want to be helpful. So whenever and I am not so far advanced in my career that I don't like need to ask people for help all the time and slide into people's DMs and whatnot. But I never want to do that because I don't want to be annoying. But every time I get a message like that, I'm always more than happy to be helpful. And I think that is the case for the vast majority of people. So slide into those DMs. And as long as you're like cool about it and not weird or creepy, like, and as long as you show that you're appropriately grateful and whatnot, then people want to be helpful. So, and that was the same advice I was given in the political world when I was applying for jobs at the White House, like early on in my career. They were sort of like, it is on you to be annoying to us. Like, we are not going to remember you when we're hiring people. But when you call and say, hey, I'm looking for this job, we talked last week, then we'll say, oh, that's right. Yeah, we should put you up for this thing. And so I think that is very much the case here, whether it is schmoozing with a showrunner to try and get staffed in a room or just asking someone out to coffee so that they know who you are or to get advice. So be a little bit annoying within reason. And I don't want now people to cite this and blame me when they're annoying assholes.
Yeah, just like saying your names in rooms that they might not be said.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, definitely. And where can people find your work? And what do you have as upcoming projects, if anything not under an NDA can be disclosed?
Yeah, no, I fortunately mostly left those behind in the political world, the NDAs. But there is an election year, of course, upon us. So still in the formative processes of hopefully cooking something up for that. But for now, I don't know. The good thing is that you don't have to worry about me being really annoying about plugging my own material when it happens. So I'll be about it on Instagram or whatnot when I have something to promote. But for now, you can find me at your local coffee shop. I will not be Zooming. I will be writing diligently.
Yeah. Or in the Iowa newspapers.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and just sharing your journey and your humor. I think this was probably one of the most fun episodes I've
Oh,
done.
hell yeah. I love that.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that. And yeah, thank you. And for everyone watching, thank you so much for tuning in. And make sure to stay tuned for when I announce the next guest in the next episode day. Happy
Thanks
St.
so much.
Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Be
Woo!
safe out there.
Yeah.